raising 6 children, Lesley Riley unleashed her pent-up creativity 11 years ago when she created lawlawsland.com to share her fragment art. That courageous move led to an amazing life teaching art, quilting, and mixed media workshops internationally. She has written 3 books with a 4th one on the way. We'll have to ask her if that's coming soon. She has a few DVDs and a new website, lesleyriley.com. Her art and articles have appeared in numerous books, magazines, and juried shows. Today, Lesley is here to demonstrate TAP. That's T-A-P. Let's see what it's all about. I'm delighted to welcome Lesley Riley. Hi, Lesley.
Hey, Tiffany, how are you? Okay, guys, here I am. First time on camera. I've done this live a lot, but let's see how it goes. I'm going to talk to you about TAP today. It's transfer artist paper. Maybe some of you have used it or heard about it. It's an iron-on transfer paper. Comes to you a white piece of paper that you put in your printer. Has a colored back side. You put the white side in. That's the side you want to print onto. And I try to put as many photos on one piece of paper as possible so I don't waste the paper. So I've got 4 photos on here that I've printed off. You can do it in color or black and white. And let's see what's next. Okay, so it's primarily designed for fabric, but since I've been using it, I've found about, oh gosh, I don't know how many surfaces that you can transfer onto. It started out as a t-shirt transfer paper, and do the big reveal here. I've got my TAP t-shirt on, and so it definitely is washable. And what I do is use it for art quilts and making my fragments. And Tiffany, I think you have a fragment you can show them so that they know what I do with it. So I'm going to get ready and do a demo, and I'll start with it on fabric. What I have here is a nice hard ironing surface. It's my desk table, but I made a little ironing mat out of the same fabric that you use to make pot holders and ironing covers. Put some white on it just so you could see everything better. Got a plain piece of white fabric. It's not pre-washed or anything. You can use any fabrics. But I'm using white to show you the good color. Let's see, upside down. So I have a picture of my granddaughter that I printed and trimmed it out, and now I'm going to lay it face down on the fabric. I've got a hot iron. It's at the highest setting. You want to put it on the highest setting, as hot as possible, and you want no steam. So make sure the iron is empty and has no steam on it. And then you just start ironing over the paper. And as the polymer coating on the paper melts, the paper adheres to the fabric, so you can actually, whoops, it's adhering to more than the fabric. There you go. You can lift it up. You won't lose your registration. Now the nice thing about ironing it onto fabric is you can just keep ironing, ironing, ironing. You could iron it forever as long as you keep your iron moving. In other words, you can't over iron it. So if you want it to be washable and you want to make sure that all the ink and polymer is on there, it's the combination of the ink and polymer that makes it permanent on fabric. So just keep ironing it. You can peek to make sure that you've got all of the ink off of the paper. But then when you do, must be something sticky there. There you go. I've got a photo of my daughter and a granddaughter on fabric. There's nothing left on the paper. All the ink and polymer has come off the paper, and now it's on here. I would use this in an art quilt or a fabric book, but basically anything you want to do fabric-wise, now you can have a way to get photos, brilliant, bright color photos on fabric. So you don't always have to work on white fabric. This is one that I did on a pink fabric. I don't know if it was hand painted or dyed fabric, but you can use any color fabric. You could use fabric with prints on it, but you want to make sure that you would put your image in a spot where the print did not interfere with the picture itself. Here's one I did on an old napkin, and I just love the way that I'm using vintage textiles to get you know, an artistic and timely effect for the artwork. So this image has been ironed right onto the vintage napkin. I'm going to show you one other trick with using a sheer fabric. Here's a nice sheer fabric, and I've also got, because it's sheer, some of the ink is going to go through the sheer, so I've got another piece of fabric behind that to catch the excess ink. And what I didn't do last time was to use a piece of parchment paper on top. I'm going to do that to protect this sheer fabric. If it was polyester and the high heat of the iron, that would melt the polyester. If you're worried about that, you just want to use as hot of an iron as possible and probably iron longer. But the parchment paper will protect any delicate fabrics underneath. So I'm using the parchment paper on top for protection. I'm going to iron this till I know that all of the polymer and inks have melted into the fabrics. Really doesn't take all that long. And then peel the paper away. Oops, there's a little corner up here. So I'm going to go back in and make sure I get that corner. Working in a small space is never safe. Okay. Alright. So now I've got this sheer fabric on top. Some of the inks have gone through the sheer fabric onto the muslin below. So I could use this sheer piece in a project, or I could layer these together slightly offset, and it gives you a nice look of dimension. I don't know if you can really see that, but by playing around with the layers, the two layers together, you can actually get a 3D look, kind of. It's hard to do on the camera. Okay, but tap is not just for fabric. I know last week, I think it was last week, maybe 2 weeks ago, Lisa Fulmer showed you some Luchador. So here's a little pocket I made out of Luchador to put some spring flowers in, because we need spring around here. So here's Luchador that I have used the heat gun on to get a nice beautiful edge. I sewed a back on it and made a little pleat in it so there'd be enough space for a pocket to put something in. I transferred the image onto painted Luchador and then did all the extra work to it. And now I've got a nice little way to present a bouquet of flowers to myself, because I'm the one that needs flowers right now. I hate the gray days we've been having lately. Okay, so tap can also be used on papers, and I believe that Tiffany has a slide showing tap on different papers. So you can put that up now, Tiffany. Great. Okay, we've got watercolor paper starting on the, I don't know if it's your left, my left, whatever, but the light blue background's on watercolor paper, then one on Luchador. The one at the top middle is on a vintage piece of paper, which I have here, another one like that, and then on a painted paper and a handmade paper. Okay, I've also got some images that I've transferred onto little die-cut cards. I don't know if you can see the frilly edge. Yeah, there we go. So I've transferred directly onto these little die-cut cards. You can make your own calling cards or Valentine's, or here's a nice Easter card. Stick in an Easter basket. You could also do this on pattern paper, tissue papers. Here's one that has been transferred onto a paper towel that's a leftover from cleaning up paint. If you're like me, you've got a stash of those too. Okay, handmade papers. Now what I've got here is a book I'm working on. Another granddaughter. This is my chance to feature all my granddaughters. So this is a book about Jillian, who was born on my birthday last year. And the next page is going to be a picture of her mother when they got to the hospital. And I was fortunate enough to be able to go with them. So I'm going to transfer this onto a painted piece of watercolor paper. I've already made my signatures, so I know what I want my book to look like. Here's a current picture. So I've got the image printed out on tap and trimmed it out. And if you're wondering how it's going to look on a painted background, you could always print your picture onto a transparency and then see what the background is going to look like underneath that photo. I wouldn't want to put it on this page. You get a big, looks like the floor has a big yellow stain, so I chose this page to put it on. That's the transparency. Okay, so face down, paper onto the book page. I think I'll take the other signatures out just so it won't be bumpy or lumpy. You want to work on a smooth surface every time you do one of these transfers. Okay. Now on paper, it's pretty much the same thing. Paper is absorbent, so everything's going to be absorbed into the paper. It's going to stick to it as well as the polymer begins to melt. It's not going to take as long though, because we're not ironing it to make it permanent as something you would want to wash. So I'm just going to make sure that it's well ironed. Keep the iron moving. Take a peek here. It's a little area there I want to go back in on. Each time you move away from fabric, like we're going to go on to wood next if we have time. Let's check my time here. We're going to, there we go. Okay, so here is Sarah at the hospital getting ready to deliver Jillian, and then I'm ready to go on to the next page. I'll run through this one on wood next. I like to do it on different woods. Again, this is a little box I've got here. If the wood is unfinished or unsealed, that's your best surface to transfer onto. But I like to put a backing on, a color backing on there, and I know Tiffany has a photo of one I've done on unfinished wood. This one I painted a background of white gesso so that I could get a nice white image. It's the same girl that I did the transparency one on. And here I've used some inks or fluid acrylics to, here we go, Liquitex inks, fluid acrylics, to give some color background. And I have an image of a woman walking. So this will be the sky, and here's the ground. Put that face down, and I like to tape it down with a low-tack tape when I'm doing it on a surface that's not all that absorbent, just so it stays in place. And again, it's not going to take all that long to transfer onto wood. Just want to make sure that I get all of it covered. There we go. One for good luck. All right, the big reveal. I love it when that happens. So now she's walking through the forest. There's a little bit of a blue sky there. It's on this nice wooden plaque that you get at the craft store. You can use plaques, you can use anything that has a nice smooth surface on it. Got one more here. And then I'll just show you one I've done on copper. I like to use these copper sheets that I get from Walnut Hollow. You can get at the craft store. And here's a bird that I transferred onto copper as well. I taped that down first so it doesn't slide away. But you can use it on copper, all different kinds of metals. And I got one more to show you, mica. Y'all familiar with mica? This is a thin peel piece, and here's a nice harder piece. This is transparent, so you've got an image on a transparent surface. Okay, hi guys. First question I can see right now is what kind of printer. That's one of the beauties of it, is that you can use any inkjet printer, no laser printers. It's designed for inkjet printers. I use an Epson because in the past I used their pigment inks, the Durabrights, but it will work with the dye-based inks and the pigment inks. So any printer that you have, as long as it's an inkjet printer. Okay, do you need to seal the image on wood? I don't seal it. Once because the wood, like I said, is absorbent, it goes into the wood. It's part of the wood. It won't scratch off. If you wanted to put a seal on it or something to make it a little shinier, then you can do that. It won't harm it. You can actually get these wet again. You can go in and paint over them or add other materials to them afterwards. Okay. Seems expensive compared to other methods. Yeah, but the results are 100% all the time. They're non-toxic. They're not messy. If you could print a lot of images out on one sheet, that helps you save money. How washable is the finished product on fabric? It's 100% washable as long as you iron it thoroughly and get it on there. You can wash it with bleach. You can wash it in a regular cycle. I like to tell everybody to turn their garment inside out if they're going to be washing a garment, just to protect it from abrasive and rubbing, because any garment, you know, no matter what it is, pair of blue jeans, anything, is going to fade after time and get worn with repeated washes. But the more you take care of it, the better off you'll be. Let's see. Talk about painting. Oh, Lisa knows all the tricks and tips. I knew I didn't have a lot of time, so I wasn't going to go into all that stuff. But you can take a blank sheet of tap and do your own drawing on it. You can use watered down acrylics. You don't want to use a thick application of acrylic paint. You can use watercolor paint, markers, anything that's soft. It has a coating on it that is a polymer, and you can actually feel it when you have the paper, but you don't want to scratch that coating off, because that's what seals the inks into the surface and makes them so brilliant when they're transferred. So anything that's soft enough that you won't hurt that coating, you can draw on or paint or whatever onto the tap. Just have to remember that if you're using text, you have to put it in reverse. Anytime you're doing a transfer, you have to have your original that's on the tap be in reverse. So when you transfer it, it comes up right side up. Can it be used on any porous material such as plaster? Yes, you can use it on plaster. What you want to do, anytime you do a transfer, you want to transfer onto a smooth surface, because if you have a flat image, like a piece of paper or whatever you're transferring from, if there's a high point onto the surface you're transferring onto, the high point, the inks will hit the high point. Like, let's say this is a high point, and then it'd be hard to get the ink to go down to the lower points. So the smoother the surface, the better. If you don't mind a grunge look, then some plaster that hasn't been well sanded would be really beautiful. Advantages of tap over bubble jet set. Okay, bubble jet set is a solution that you put your fabric into to prepare it for printing directly. Put your fabric directly through the printer. And that is a whole different process, direct printing versus transferring. But when you use tap, you get much brighter image than you'll ever get when printing on fabric, because when you're printing on fabric, the inks are absorbed by the fabric itself, so the image isn't going to be as bright. And also over time, then they will fade too, the inks printed directly on fabric. This, you will get a longer, brighter image that's more durable, and can't say how long it'll be before it would ever fade, because it just hasn't been around that long. But being when you marry the inks with the acrylic and the polymer coating on the paper, it's probably going to be there quite a long time.